Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Reed. Hall will not be joining us for this episode, taking care of him and his family, of course. But the title of tonight's Burgundy Zone episode is the Senior Bowl Recap. Just wanted to say the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And joining me, obviously, of course, is my co-host, Mr. Michael Reed. Sir, how are you doing a week removed from the NFC Championship game?
Well, let me tell you something, Kyle. I was not good that Sunday. And it wasn't even that we lost. It was how bad we lost. And it was, but then, you get over it in a day and you say, hey, we're in a good spot finally. Jesus Christ. Thank the Lord. We are finally there. Thank you. Thank Adam Peters. Thanks Josh Harris. Thanks Jaden Daniels. Thanks Dan Quinn. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, absolutely pumped, obviously being a week removed from the NFC Championship. But I'll say this, look, with all the years that we've had like bad games and those kind of clutch situations where primetime games, I will take losing that way in the NFC Championship rather than getting clobbered in the regular season, not even having a chance. That being said, it is the offseason. This week was the Senior Bowl week. This being a Senior Bowl recap, we thought we'd bring in really good friend of this pod, somebody who had boots on the ground this week, Mr. Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network. Thank you for joining us this evening, brother. How you doing?
Doing well as always. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes, sir. Ryan, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, all right? First question I wanted to ask you regarding the Senior Bowl week and the East-West Shrine game, who is the biggest surprise, you would say?
I'll say this. It was really good to see a lot of these small school prospects, specifically in Mobile along the offensive line, show up. And even the kid out at Shrine, Thomas Perry, that's at Division III, Newberry up there in Vermont. People forget that he started out at LSU. So he was a highly touted recruit, but he did a really nice job at Shrine. But Clay Webb from Jacksonville State, or Jacob Bayer from Arkansas State, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State had a hell of a week. That was the biggest, I guess, surprise for me. But one player that I really enjoyed watching all week long, I gave him a day 2 grade heading into the week. And I was a little bit overzealous on him, but I wanted to see him live. And that was Mac McWilliams, the corner from UCF. He transferred in from UAB this year and just was watching his tape, guys. It was Travis Hunter, it was Tatora McMillan, then it was Jordan Tyson, first rounder next year from Arizona State. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, what am I missing here? This kid can play ball. And seeing him in Mobile, not only in one-on-ones, but also in teamwork and also competing in the ground game in the fringe areas and just ability to tackle was it rounded out the evaluation for me. It's finally just him wearing the UCF helmet just one last time. So if I had to pick one guy that really surprised, or for me just finalized my evaluation as a guy that hasn't been talked about a bunch, it's Mac McWilliams, the corner from UCF.
Yeah, I'm pumped on it. This is such a odd year for the draft, it seems like just compared to the last few years where, there's reports that some teams have 8 to 10 guys graded as first rounders, but there's a lot of these small school guys. You look at the kid from who was the kid from what is the name, the HBCU school, the tackle. It was, I forget his name, but he was very good. But some of these skill position guys, the Commanders are obviously going to be in the market for a skill position guy, be that running back, wide receiver, tight end. Is there anybody out there that you think could maybe flash that you could see the Commanders maybe pairing up nicely with? I don't know why that question was so hard for me to get out. That was bumbling everywhere.
Yeah, the running backs, look, all the attention, guys, as you know, as he showcases, watching the big boys up front and then watching wide receivers, DBs go at each other. But I always like to kind of take time and watch these running backs and linebackers go at each other. And the running backs this year, I know I've talked about it in the past on here as far as guys upwards of 30 to 35 draftable grades, but there's a couple guys that were down in Mobile specifically. One is Brashard Smith from SMU. This kid was a 4-star wide receiver that went to Miami, transferred to SMU, and really built one of the most electric backfields in college football this year with Kevin Jennings down there for the Mustangs, who we'll hear about next year. And Brashard is going to be a playbook extender right away. And when we look at the Commanders roster right now, For all the running backs on the roster, I can't look at one right now and say you're the RB1 for next year. I can't look at any of them right now. So Brashard, I think, is going to be an excellent RB2 for somebody, but in this offense with Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury mixing things up, I really like him. And I also like Woody Marks. I like Woody a little bit more than I do Brashard as far as a running back. But just both guys that have just excellent vision, excellent footwork. They're tough in pass pro as well. I always hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, he doesn't have great technique in pass pro." I could care less. Technique is or pass pro. Look, it's an effort thing. Are you going to stick your face in the
Yeah.
mud or not? And both those guys did so this week against some damn good linebackers down there in Mobile. So running back specifically, Brashard Smith from SMU, Woody Marks from USC, and even the tight ends definitely showed out well there in Mobile too.
Yeah, and obviously Mike Green is a name that everyone has been seeing this week
Oh,
from
yeah.
the Senior Bowl, absolutely dominating some guys out there. But that being said, what would you say besides running back it was the strength of the Senior Bowl, a positional group?
Yeah, I know this is probably a cliche answer considering the class, but the defensive line was very, very impressive. Day after day, I feel like a different guy popped. Even a guy like Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, where
Mm.
at the end of the week, I wasn't expecting him to dominate on one-on-ones. That's just not his game. But in teamwork, in the ground game, bouncing off guys with bumpers tied to their shoulder as far as just looping and teamwork, he's just a fundamentally really good football player. And then Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. All the attention has been on Derek Harmon this year as a potential first rounder, or Jordan Birch, or guys in the secondary like Jabbar Muhammad, who I really like in this class. But you look at Jamari at 340 plus pounds, and I talked to him after practice one of the days. I said, "Where do you kind of get that twitch from?" And he said, "I used to play running back." He's
Wow.
340 pounds, but the guy can move up and down the defensive line. So that's the type of player to where I think we can all agree on here as far as we don't really know what the future is for Deron Payne and John Allen on this roster. And credit to some of the rotational guys that stepped up this year. But the defensive line every single day was stepping up. And potentially, guys, even the best guy there was Darius Alexander from Toledo, a MAC kid who was very, very impressive all week long.
Wow. Yeah, that's going to be such a weird thing because like we put so much money and I mean draft capital into the defensive line, especially the interior.
Yeah.
But just to get run on like this consistently, it's like you gotta get a big boy. You gotta get a John Henderson. You gotta get a 6'7", 340-pound bull in there to hopefully be able to stop Saquon Barkley and Jameer Gibbs and some of these guys. But looking at some of the other positions, especially on the defense, is there any linebackers? I know you said that linebackers were very good up there. That some people say that could be a hole for the Commanders. Is there anybody out there that really flashed?
Yeah, very impressed with Smile Munden from Georgia. Now, you already know what you're going to get from Georgia linebackers. I know you're athletic and I know you can trigger, but what can you do in coverage? And
Mm.
Smile was, for me, the best linebacker in attendance there this week. I mean, he's picking off angle routes. He's staying with guys on little rail mesh concepts from out of the backfield. Runs extremely well in space, extremely smart as well. And looking at this Commanders group, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu is obviously going to be around, but you don't know what you're going to get from guys like Jordan McGee. Is he going to be a piece? Is Dom
Mm.
Hampton going to play some hybrid stuff like we've seen in the Dan Quinn defense? We don't know just yet. And we're looking at this class, and specifically in Mobile, there's a lot of guys that can come downhill and hit you and then also drop your hips and flip in coverage. Even a guy like Justin Barron from Syracuse that can play safety, he can play backer, or Nick Martin, who's personally one of my favorites in this class. He wasn't healthy in 2024, but he was flying around there, and people expect him to test in the low 4.4s in the 40. So he's going to test well, and that some of that stuff does matter for some schools, even though for me it's turn on the tape and see what the player is. But linebackers were great down there. I just love seeing guys pop, ability to show up, and I will say this from the Commanders' perspective: Chuck Cook, one of their head college scouts for Washington, he was locked into the offensive lineman this week, locked in. Multiple guys just staring at them day after day after day. Whether it was Anthony Belton, whether it was Carson Vincent, kid from Alabama A&M, some of the interior guys, and Adam Peters, day one, he was just standing there right on the sideline, wide receiver DBs, every single rep, taking notes after every single one. Those two positions, I think they're going to add O-line. I'd be pretty confident they had at least one receiver and one DB in this class.
That
Real,
being
real
said,
fast
Ryan,
from the
you
from the shrine, real fast from the Shrine Bowl was a quarterback from Canada, right?
There was, yes.
Do you know if we have to pay 25% more on his contract?
I don't know if he's going to be, hey, I don't know if he's going to be an NFL guy, but it was cool seeing him down there with guys. It looked like he was 12 years old learning the position.
Yeah,
It wasn't good for him, but good opportunity for the
yeah,
young.
right.
That,
Right.
Yeah.
that being said, you had a perfect segue into my question because Sam Cosmi tearing his ACL in the playoffs, we don't know how long he's going to be out, Ryan. And the fans were already wanting to add some more offensive linemen to this group. What are some guys' names to for fans to monitor that could be in realistic range for Washington to get. Obviously, they don't pick till 29, and the second round is going to be way farther down there, of course. But that being said, who are some guys that keep an eye on?
I think a dream scenario, if you're Washington, if you wanted to go offensive line in the first round and you wanted to get a guy that's really versatile, you can play him at tackle or guard. Personally, for me, it's Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. I think he's one of the highest floor prospects in this entire class and really one of my favorites. But I think as you work into day two or early portions of day three, a guy I really like is Miles Frazier from LSU. Now, he's someone that played guard, he played tackle, he didn't allow a sack this year for LSU. They had three guys down there in Mobile that were along that front five. The only guys missing were their center, and then, of course, Will Campbell, who's probably going to go in the top 15 picks. But Miles Frazier, just the versatility. Now, I'm not expecting him to come in right away and start. If they were really looking for that bona fide, certified right tackle right away, maybe they look at Ariante Ursary from Minnesota and bumping him to the other side, or maybe they want to look on day three for potentially Marcus Bowe from Purdue is I know it has some first round buzz. I don't see it. I think he falls deeper in this draft, but there are some big boys up front that really got after it. Even Jonah Monheim as well from USC this week that can absolutely play. And the tape is always the biggest thing for me, guys. It's just I'm not going to sit here right now and go into the Mobile coming back and saying, yeah, I'm going to drop this guy 2 rounds or raise him 2 rounds because I saw him win in 10 one-on-ones. I
Yeah.
got 4 or 5 years of tape on this kid. I got to trust what I'm seeing and really use these pre-draft showcases, excuse me, as far as just the ability to finalize my evaluation. So I think that was great seeing some of these guys that were lower on rosters or depth charts or boards rise. But it's just I'm not going to go crazy after coming back from Mobile and seeing guys win at one-on-ones. That's just not the way I approach this.
Right. Right. What about wide receivers with size? Are there any of them big boys out there that you can throw a jump ball up to and you can just say, hey, we're good. We got it.
Yeah, I think two right come to mind right away. Jaden Higgins from Iowa State had a really good week.
His release, I was watching some
Yes.
video about his release, was just insane for somebody
Yeah.
his size. I was like, what the hell is that?
I was just going to say that, Mike, because look, I don't care if you run 4.4, 4.5. Jerry Rice ran 4.71. I'm not comparing anybody to Jerry Rice, but it's the nuances of the position. Can you separate? Can you go over the top of somebody? Can you find the soft spots in zone? Can you create after the catch a little bit? Jaden Higgins and even Pat Bryant as well from Illinois. Now, I will say this. I like Daquan Felton from Virginia Tech, transferred in from Norfolk State. Talented kid. And if I think he can come into an offense like Washington, where he has a quarterback in Jaden Daniels to raise his performance ceiling, like we saw what he did with everybody this year, that's a player that's solidified 6'4", really athletic kid, blocks his tail off, just the small nuances in his game I want to see improve on, like the release package that we just talked about with Jaden Higgins. Daquan Felton on day three, again, from Virginia Tech, local guy, is an interesting name to know as a bigger, more physical type of receiver.
Dude, it's so weird. I'm so used to being in quarterback purgatory that like I forgot. Like when you have a good quarterback, you can draft guys that just have traits, and like sometimes that'll just hit because your quarterback can just get them the ball.
Yeah.
God, that's so exciting. I'm
It's
so
very
pumped about.
exciting. And
Yeah.
that's what we've been preaching here for a while. But that being said, I know that we've had a little bit of fun here, but let's kind of not get negative. But Ryan, what are some positions or players you have questions about now that we're away from the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I'll even start with a guy that wasn't at the Senior Bowl. I'll start with a guy that was at Shrine, but he didn't show up to compete, and that's Shadur Sanders.
Hmm.
Um, for me, he's probably got I have an early second round grade on the kid. He's going to be someone that I don't want to sit here and just talk negative all day long, but the lower half for me, the ability to move inside the pocket, I think his arm strength when you get beyond 20 yards, it's for me, it's underwhelming at times. And that's just my opinion. It's really nice sitting back and Travis Hunter here, and LaJohntay Wester, and Jimmy Horn, and Will Shepard. There's guys everywhere. I personally have been underwhelmed with Shadur Sanders as far as just what I saw at Colorado at times when things went bad and how you elevated those around you. And then I want to see you compete in the pre-draft process. I don't need to see Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. I know what you guys are. But for guys like Shadur, and even Cam Ward too, they had a Senior Bowl invite. Show up and compete. Wear that helmet one more time and solidify your stock, like we saw with a guy like Bo Nix last year. Go to Mobile and had a damn good job. So for me, I think there's one guy, Shadur Sanders, and then another guy. If I was a GM, I wouldn't have this kid on my board, and he's gotten first round love. That's Deion Walker from Kentucky.
Oh, he's one of them big boys too, right? He's like
He
six
is
seven,
six
340 or
seven,
something. I think he's
340.
who I thought of when I said that.
Yeah,
Damn.
guys,
Okay.
I'm pretty much all the way out on a Deion Walker. The word potential is thrown around with a lot of these guys in this defensive line class. But that word, it gets coaches fired every single year. Now, that it would take a lot to get Dan Quinn out of here. It's not going to happen. But I would be very, very surprised with how they built this culture and the types of ball players that they want to draft a guy like Dion. I don't think he's lifted a weight in his entire life. 80% of his body weight looks like it's waist up. Now, the length is there. The potential is there for him to be an absolute game wrecker. I don't see it on tape. I didn't see it at the Senior Bowl. He's going up in a one-on-one against Willie Lampkin, who's damn 5'10", 250 pounds. I don't care. You're a four-time wrestling state champion or Willie and you play in the ACC. Deion Walker, you have a chance to blow that guy 10 yards back on his ass, and you don't. You're playing soft. And he's one of the softest players in this class for me. And I think that's one of the most negative terms you could use on a player. You don't want to call a guy soft. But for Deion Walker, I just don't see it. And I thought he was going to be a potential top 15 guy this year. But I wouldn't touch him in the top 100, top 150. He'd be a guy that I would take to put developmental traits on because he's big. That's fine. I just don't see it in his tape. And I don't know if he will.
Damn,
So
Kyle also hasn't touched a weight in his entire life. So that's crazy.
no, I was gonna say, so that guy Deion Walker is shaped a lot like Reed is, eighty
Yeah,
percent to
dude,
the
I
upper
was
body.
the other day, Lindsay told me I was shaped like an ice cream cone melting upwards. Did I tell you that?
Yes, you told us that. Yes, many
That's
times.
so
But
funny.
Ryan, to finish this up, only a couple more questions for you, brother. But who are some players on Washington this year? Because there's going to be a lot of turnover, of course, a lot of one-year deals that were handed out. But who, in your mind, deserves to come back and play another year?
Yeah, I think my first one in my mind is De'Ami Brown. I think he's somebody that, look, it's always been 2 years away from being 2 years away for De'Ami, but people forget how loaded that offense was at Carolina when he came out of it. Obviously, Sam Howell throwing the rock down there in Chapel Hill. I would like to see De'Ami back. I mean, it's kind of what I mentioned to you earlier with Jaden elevating the ceilings of guys and away from, of course, the fumble and NFC title game, the other two that they had. It's unfortunate what happened, but the way in which he stepped up, and I really feel like De'Ami found his confidence on the outside, the ability to win at all three levels, what we talked about as a day two pick out of North Carolina. And then Jeremy Chin or even Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, I think both those guys, I think I would love to see back. I know Zach's not retiring. I would like to see him back as potentially a tight end one again in this offense, see what they do with Ben Sinnott. But this tight end class is so darn deep with players that you may add another guy to come in and compete. And if you're Adam Peters, you never want to shy away from competition. I think that's what makes everybody better. So I would say those three guys for me.
My man. Now, my next question for you, Ryan. This is a hypothetical. Should Washington trade for or sign a wide receiver?
I think if they do, I think it is going to be a big name. I think it is a Chris Godwin. I think it is a T. Higgins to say, holy smokes, they're upgrading talent at the position. And then you got to pick your poison. Is it Terry? Is it a T? Is it Chris? And then you got tight end, running back, Jaden Daniels out the back door. That type of thing. But in this class, I think there's a lot of depth, even you get back to end of round one, to where if they really sit there and say, we really like Emeka Egbuka, or we really like Matthew Golden from Texas, so I wouldn't be surprised he sneaks in the back end of round one in this class, or even Jalen Royals from Utah State. I was talking to a couple scouts after the third practice in Mobile, and they said, we have solidified round two grades on this kid, but wouldn't be shocked
Damn.
if he's at 25. That's just
Wow.
this draft, but he was
Hmm.
awesome. And I will even say this, guys, this is a situation where sometimes you see guys live and you're saying, oh man, maybe he looks like he's going at 75%. He's going to 80%. He may be a guy that doesn't have a lot of effort. I didn't see that at all. I think I look at a guy that is just so smooth and so fluid. Remember watching Jordan Reed live? I was like, man, this guy just moves different than everybody else. And Jalen and his ways to move on the outside and win in a variety of ways. He bench pressed the corner, Jonathan Edwards from Tulane off the line of scrimmage. That's just a player that I look at in this class and say, hey, look, keep an eye on him in the back end of round one. But whatever Adam Peters does, I trust in him to do, even though everything hasn't been perfect this year, looking at Michael Davis, and even we could talk about Marshawn Lattimore all day long.
My man, last question I have for you. Players that you think will creep up into the first or second round.
Yeah, I will say Jalen Royals, absolutely. If I had to say I'll go corner. Quincy Riley from Louisville had a hell of a week down
Okay.
there. Quick story on him, guys. Last year I was down in Mobile. He was supposed to show up, went back to school. They brought in Jarvis Brownlee Jr., his teammate, went to the Titans. I remember talking to one of Louisville's coaches in their secondary. He said Quincy's going back to school because he wants to be a first rounder in 2025. He had a hell of a year in the ACC, goes down to Mobile, was excellent. I did an interview with him. He said, hey, I'm the best DB in the class. Don't know about that, but you're a hell of a ball player, and I think he could possibly sneak in to back end of round one because he's also expected to test really well also.
My man. Ryan, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I know it's probably been a very busy week for you. I've seen your interviews that you've done on the field. But before you get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching you hasn't followed you yet, brother.
Of course, I'm on X if you don't follow me there already at underscore Ryan Fowler. All my work is at thedraftnetwork.com, and my podcast, Commanding the Huddle, will come out one time a week now that we're in the off season, focused on all thing free agency, the draft, and everything leading up to April.
My man.
This type of year, by the way, is where you're going to see somebody like Fowler just completely shine. Where it's like we're
Yeah.
picking. It's not like number two pick Jaden Daniels. We all know that. Then we have an early second round pick. It's like picking at the end of round one, picking at the end. So really take Fowler's advice because he knows all these guys. He knows them well, and it's going to be. I'm pumped. You just got me fired up for the draft, dude. I've been so depressed since we lost. I haven't been fired up. Now I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I always appreciate you guys.
Being depressed is just naturally for you to read. All right, Ryan, have a good
Yeah,
one.
obviously.
All
I
right,
can
guys.
deal with you, Kyle.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ryan Fowler. Appreciate his time. I wanted to, since it's the off season, kind of, I just want to talk about like current events that have happened recently. And I know we love talking with Ryan, of course, but
Yeah, Ryan's the man.
how crazy are these plane crashes, dude? I mean, obviously, rest in peace and prayers to everyone involved, but man, is this insane.
Dude, it's nuts. It was, what was it, 3, 4 straight days? Something crazy happened.
Yeah, there was a
Man,
military plane crash. I think it was a F thirty
yeah.
five.
We all just forgot about that because the crazy stuff started, the real crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I've done a bunch of projects right outside of Reagan Airport, and it's one of I've done work at Reagan Airport actually. So I've always be able to see them flying in and out, and obviously it's a very chaotic situation. I've even seen the Blackhawks when I did night work down in DC. I'd be driving down the GW Parkway, and you'd see those Blackhawks just levitate above the Potomac, just hovering there, and you could see the planes lifting off overhead. But like in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well they're just there for protection for like somebody who a high value somebody that's on a plane to make sure
Right,
nobody
right, right.
messes with the plane, right? Like
Yeah,
that's my whole thought process. So I know there's like I've seen them before down there doing it. It's just insane the whole circumstances involved. Like you hear the one guy in the traffic control tower saying, "Did you see that?" And like that, when you hear that, you're just like, "No, man."
dude. Yeah, that one, and then also like all those kids that were
Yeah.
coming back, the ice skaters and stuff. That was, oh God,
And
that's
then
tough,
the
man. I couldn't.
medical one in Pennsylvania, like I told you before we
That
started
is
recording,
the craziest videos I think I've ever seen, man. That thing, that's man.
free
Prayers to
fall.
everybody involved in that.
Free
Yeah,
fall, dude.
that's
And that's what
so
we were talking about.
scary.
If they had just lifted off, how are you gaining that much speed? Because, obviously when you lift off, you're not going max speed. You're going enough to lift up in the air, but you're not going the like the right amount that you would say that they landed at, right? So it was almost like free fall. It was
It
horrible, man. Because like we talked
had
about it, like
to,
usually when you see crashes, typically you'll see some rocking going on,
yeah.
trying to maintain some going on.
This
Very
was
weird.
this one was like a missile. Dude, this one, I mean, it wasn't a missile. Conspiracy theorist. I know I'm conspiracy brain too, but it wasn't. It was a plane. But you just like
Oh, I
that was
feel
scary, man. That was
obviously you
really
feel
scary. That
terrible
was
because it was a medical patient who just got news that they're going to be good to go. They got pulled off the list. They're getting their surgery that what they need to get done, and then that happens. It's just that's horrible, man. Just a
God damn, man.
horrible state that
Mm,
we're in right now. It's just craziness to see where we are at this point. It just in a couple days, everything could just seem so chaotic and crazy, as you
yeah.
could say. And like I was saying, I was 10 minutes away from there on Friday morning doing some work. And come to find out, that's what happened later
Oh
on.
yeah,
It
you
looked
were converting to a Philadelphia Eagles fan up there, weren't you?
no. I hope not. I was funny right before the
I
NFC
hope
champ,
not.
right before the NFC Championship game. I was wearing my Commander shirt. I was up in a Swarthmore College. It's up in PA, and I
Hmm.
was some kid walked out. And he's like, "You can't be wearing that here." And I was like, "Oh, that's too bad." I feel sorry.
Yeah. What do you take it off me?
So,
Then he started
what do you mean?
kissing. Yeah.
No, but he was a good sport. He wasn't like rude
Yeah.
around it, but he
No,
was
no,
like,
dude, we were talking about that. It's crazy how Eagles fans are because like the ones that we know personally are like logical, awesome people who like are like, yeah, I don't know, man, I'm actually scared of your guys' offense. Like I'm scared. But then
right.
like you watch the videos and you see Philly and you're just like, good God, these fans are the worst. And it's crazy. It must just be the city of Philadelphia must just be a shithole. And I think that's what it is a lot of time.
I don't know. I'm not going to disagree with you. I just do think there's some bad apples that just like kind of like you and your boys on J6. I think that sometimes just
Right.
bad apples just corrupt everyone else,
Right,
especially
right,
in those
right.
settings.
Sometimes bad apples give everybody bad name. It's just there's a lot of bad apple. That
Yeah.
entire orchard is poisoned.
I
You
told you
know?
guys in that episode before the game, I said, if you're going, be careful. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like,
Yeah.
it's like everyone knows this. And that's like my thought process with it. Like, obviously, I'm not going to give a lot of like highlight to what happened in Philly after the game and to the fans and everything like that, as horrible as it is. But like as
Ooh.
an adult, you understand that's
Yeah,
what you're gonna get. You
especially I
can't,
mean that
yeah,
happens everywhere. All stadiums people are ignorant, but like
yeah,
Philly, it's like they're really ignorant. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
and
They're
it's
they're
not
real.
something that you can change by just putting out on Twitter to say, hey, can we stop? Like you're not gonna stop. Like they literally love it. Like that's their badge
Yeah,
of honor. And just by highlighting it more, it just makes it worse because now more people are, and honestly, more people should be probably concerned about going up there alone.
yeah,
And
yeah,
credit to those fans that did go. They typically had somebody with them, and that's what you. If you're gonna go, go in a group. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And just that it's better off that way. You don't want to end up like those fans that went to Baltimore, of course.
yeah.
That was absolutely horrible in itself.
That
But
was nuts. Yeah, I forgot that happened.
now that being said, let's get into some fan questions. All right, and this first one was submitted by the Colonel. His question is, Reed, why is there so much buzz regarding New York Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson coming to Washington in a trade next season? Is there anything behind these rumors? Because it could just as easily be T. Higgins or any other free agent wide receiver.
Just it's just one of those things where it's like a wide receiver with a lot of potential who's shown that he could be good, and things kind of fell off this past year with the whole Aaron Rodgers debacle. And then you got a young emerging team that has a need at wide receiver. He went to school with the number one wide receiver here. It's just one of those things where like it makes sense. It would be huge. So I think that's kind of why you hear a lot of the buzz with T. Higgins, all these guys. It's like it would be to not just to us Commanders fans, but like to the rest of the world, like to the rest of the football media. Like it would make sense. And that's kind of a good position to be in. I think having rumors like that. So I don't know. I hope so. I would take Garrett Wilson in a heartbeat, dude. I'll get him over here.
Well,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying, dude?
which begs to question why the Jets even acquired Devontae Adams in the first place. You had a
You
very
know
good
why they
weapon
acquired
there,
him.
and obviously he was somewhat utilized in that time, but it wasn't like
You
Garrett
know why
Wilson.
they acquired him.
Yeah, I know,
Rodgers wanted
but
him.
his
Yeah.
potential is so much higher, and you had a quarterback there to kind of help you get to that point. But obviously, they felt another superstar wide receiver is what they honestly needed. Now, to your question is why is there so much buzz? New GM, new head coach, right? And so you have to imagine with a aging quarterback, with a older wide receiver there, you're not going to get rid of Sauce because getting a number one corner is very hard in this league. You typically have to be drafting in the top 5 to get one. To be able to get some wide receiver talent, you can even sign them through free agency or trade like Devontae Adams, so to speak, right? So one of the reasons is you try to unload Garrett Wilson to kind of reload the chamber and so to speak, in terms of being able to replenish your football team in other areas that you possibly need it. So why is there buzz? Probably because there's new guys in place. They probably want to start doing the recalibration type thing. Garrett Wilson fits that bill of somebody that would garner enough to where you feel like you're able to recalibrate. But I also think there's an element to it of Garrett Wilson wanting a fresh start. But the other aspect of this, Colonel, is just like in years past, whenever there was a tradable quarterback, whenever there was a free agent quarterback, they're going to be linked to Washington. It's literally, we could do it every
Gonna
single
happen from now
offseason.
on now. Yeah.
Every single one was going to be linked. And this is what's going to happen with wide receivers now. Is anybody that is possibly up in the air on the market, possibly tradable for, you're going to see these videos of people claiming it. There's rumors to it. What are the rumors, right?
Right.
Obviously,
Until we get
every NFL team is going to be interested in acquiring Garrett Wilson. The question is, are you actually going to put, like Reed on a Saturday, put your meat on the table and say,
right,
here you go, I
right,
want you to take it.
right. And sometimes the meat doesn't even fit on the table. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just way too tiny. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like every wide receiver that becomes available for the last few years, you always hear, oh, they're going to the Chiefs, oh, they're going to the Bills, oh, they're going to,
Right.
and it's just one of those things where it's like that's us now. We better just get used to this new goddamn life we're living, boys, because It's going to be fun for the next 10 years.
Yes, and now the next question from the Colonel read: does Chicago's hiring of former Washington Commanders offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy mean that Caleb Williams is in danger of being Sam Howell 2.0?
No, he's going to be their running backs coach, I believe.
That is correct.
But I will say it is going to be funny to watch those two interact if anything goes wrong between them. Because Caleb, I mean, look, I like Caleb. I still think Caleb, despite how, I'm allowed to say this now, despite how gay Bears fans have been as of late, uh, having Caleb is still super talented. He still made a hell of plays. Like he should be good, but he does have a little bit of diva in him. We can all agree on that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you have to have some diva in you to be great these days. And like me, like Kyle has so much diva in him. It's crazy. But him and Bieniemy, man, if they get into it one time, that's going to be a train wreck, dude. It's going to be funny, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully they kind of just stay away from each other. I'm just more surprised that Bieniemy, who is a former running back who is known for abandoning the run and not running the ball, is
Right.
going to coach running backs.
Right.
Okay.
And you're right. Look, I have a lot of theories as to why we threw the ball a lot that season. And I'm not going to go back in the past and blame one or the other. Look, regardless, Eric Bieniemy was brought in Chicago strictly to be the running backs coach. Okay? If you looked at Anthony Lynn coming into the season, did you think that Anthony Lynn was going to dictate what happened with Jaden Daniels? Right? No, because there were more elements that were involved with it. And obviously, Eric Bieniemy being in the running backs room, it's going to be much more so of just getting that hard-nosed kind of tough mindset that Eric Bieniemy had. You can go back to Welcome to the NFL Rookie where he was coaching Adrian Peterson in Minnesota as the running backs coach. So
Yeah.
going back to that, he's very good at it. And so it's obviously a good idea for Chicago. Ben Johnson knows what he's doing. I'm happy for Eric Bieniemy to get back into the NFL. Obviously, his stint at UCLA was not all that great, but hopefully he does able to rekindle that fire and show what his true worth is. Because like somebody like Jim Tom Sula was very similar to this. We're not the best head coach, not the best maybe coordinator, but if you put him on the defensive line, Jim Tonsula was one of the best coaches you could ask for,
Yeah, right,
right? And
right.
maybe that's a similar kind of thing with Eric
I hope
Bieniemy here.
so. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But also it is kind of funny the way that it all worked out with Ben Johnson. Because he put himself in a corner where he had to accept a coaching head coaching position this offseason. Like if he didn't, it would be everybody would be like, this is 3 years in a row. What is wrong with this guy? And then it was like he wanted to stay away from us. Allegedly, who knows which side of the conversation is true, but let's just say he wanted to stay away from us because of all the hoopla in the background, and he didn't see eye to eye with some of these guys. Now he's going to Chicago, where Chicago hasn't had very much success at all as of late either, especially at the quarterback position. And they had some issues last year with players, not buying into certain things and talking out to the media and stuff like that. But this was the best. This was his best bet. So hey, man, you get what you get. I've all best wishes to you, man.
Yeah, I just hope Caleb doesn't like wearing his hat, especially backwards. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the
Right.
next question that we have is from Tony Franchise on Twitter. Reed, what position of needs should we fill in the draft, and what positions should we fill in free agency?
Oh, so that's tough because free agents. I mean, as of right now, just looking at it, there should be some good wide receivers out there. I mean, there should be some guys that can go in there and help. Um, so it's tough to say at the moment until guys start getting re-signed. But I will say, kind of touched on this earlier, the defensive line. Do you want to waste an early round pick on a defensive tackle or somebody that can go up there and play multiple fronts on the defensive line? Probably not with all the money you got tied in there right now, of course, unless something happens with Jonathan Allen or Deron Payne where you ship them out. But like that, even with those guys, that defensive line was an issue. Like all season, getting run on at will, like having two all-pro linebackers back there, getting all these tackles and stuff, but the defensive line just was not stopping the run. And so I think someone on the defensive line, I think you're going to see early on in the draft be that defensive tackle, depending on what happens with them, or edge rusher. I think having a solid edge rusher, somebody who's athletic, I mean, shout out Dante Fowler, he played fantastic. I still think that you could really use some more bodies up there on that defensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. For free agency, it's going to be difficult for free agency because, like, with linebacker in particular, right? Like, they signed Frankie Louvu, they signed Bobby Wagner, and then they got Jordan McGee in the draft. I almost want for linebacker it to be flip flopped in the sense of we want the younger guys to be in those starter kind of roles if they're good enough, obviously. but then having the veteran guys be in the backup role in case they were called upon, they'd be able to slide in the mental aspect of the game, right? When you have that younger-ish kind of guy as the backup and they're not ready in a mental aspect to come up and be able to answer that call, then you're reluctant to play them. So then you have the older guys who are starting continue to play when they possibly are injured because of the drop-off. And that's probably one aspect of this I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do, because I would like to see them be able to invest a little bit more in edge. Obviously, we have Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who had his own sort of flare-ups, you could say, in production at times. But honestly, I think you need speed. You need speed around the edge. And I know a lot of people are talking about the edge rusher being able to set the edge of line of scrimmage, which is great. That's exactly what you need. But I don't think that's the only issue. It's also being able to get to the sideline, because our defense at times, we're not very good at being able to stop the perimeter. And so that's one aspect. And I don't think that's all on the edge. I think there's also some DBs and some linebackers that needed to be able up in that position. That's where that
100%.
youth, that speed is as well. But honestly, I think I want to draft a wide receiver. And the reason I say that
be
is
able to develop him and stuff. And,
I want him to grow with
know.
Jaden Daniels. Like,
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
I want Terry McLaurin to retire here. As soon as he retires from here, I want his number retired that day. But I also want Jaden to be able to grow with a wide receiver. No disrespect to Diami or Noah or the other guys. It's just like having that youngerish guy that you could go up with, because that's one thing that really good teams were able to do.
Having a Marvin Harrison and a Reggie Wayne.
Well,
Peyton growing with Reggie Wayne, you know what I'm saying?
exactly. And like, even look at Pittsburgh. They had Hines Ward, they had Plaxico Burress.
They've been producing.
Yep. They then just re-chamber with Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes, right? And just go down the list. That they were able to supplement their wide receiving core just by drafting guys. And obviously you need the quarterback first, and that's what we have. But I'm just saying that I would like to be able to keep that crop growing with just through the draft, of course. Obviously, $90 million cap space. A lot of people are going to say, "Go get T. Higgins, go get Garrett Wilson." I get all that. It's just I think that the youth movement is where we should be heading towards, not so much more so the older aspect.
Yeah, right. Well, but that's kind of what Adam Peters has said. I mean, who knows? This is year two. I don't think anybody expected us to be as close as we are, except for Dan Quinn. But Adam Peters has said, he's like, "This is how we build a team. This is why we got all this 1 year contracts. You kind of just replenish. You kind of get those guys. You kind of build through the draft, and that's usually the way that you're successful. We've seen multiple times in past years, teams going out there. Us is a prime example of it. Going out there and signing all these big names all the time, and it doesn't always work out. In fact, it rarely works out. Think of the Eagles' dream team.
Right.
So." But when you already have that quarterback and some of these positions established, then you can kind of get away with doing that. So it'll be interesting to see the route that they choose.
Absolutely. And like, this really is a really big question to discuss, because they only have 7 draft picks. They don't have a fifth, or no, they have a fifth. They don't have a fourth or a sixth. They have 3 sevens, right? First, a second. I think
they have a third.
They have a third. Oh, they don't have a fourth, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a fourth that they don't have.
And then they have a fifth, and then 3 sevenths. So you have to imagine that's only really 3 picks you're able to work with, of being able to get some good youth and potential production there, right? So you're going to have to be able to decide. And then it brings up the free agency aspect, because the free agency is before. And so you have to be able to diagnose and figure out what's going to go on there. But I know everyone's going to want a younger guy out of free agency. I just think that you have to be smart in the way that you're going to build this team, and being able to recoup guys, because now that they were on the NFC Championship team, their asking price is going to rise naturally. And so to be able to recoup them is going to take a little bit. So if you go out and pay for a big name free agent guy, if you go out and trade for him, you have to pay him. It's a big chunk that's going to be taken out, unless you do some wizardry with the contract extension and all that jazz. So, but for free agency, Tony, I'll say it's probably going to be smarter to go down the aspect of looking at like offensive line depth, especially in a couple areas, based on how many draft picks you do have. I would love to be able to get a guy like Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State or something like that, to be able to sit behind Tyler Badass or possibly start, kind of like Cooper Beebe did. But like, that's one of those things where you don't have that many picks, so you got to figure out what to do. Now, the next question that we have is in the Discord. Read before you fall asleep. This is from Arch, who sent this in 3 days ago. Unfortunately, the offseason arrived a little earlier than we had hoped. What are you looking forward to most in the offseason? What news would make you the most excited?
Well, I've always look forward to the draft. I think it's so fun, especially this year picking so late. Like it's interesting. You really kind of got to drive in on them scouting reports and do some extra good scouting. But what would make me the happiest? What would make me the most excited? Would be if they did pull off a trade or a signing for either an edge rusher or a wide receiver, somebody to pair with Terry. Like if you saw like a T Higgins, who I think would be perfect, just based off the size and stuff. I know he's going to be asking for a lot, or Trey Hendrickson. If they could pull that off somehow, because I know his contract's up, uh, that would be fantastic. Will it happen? I don't know, but I mean, you would feel you would say, "Boys, we are back." That's what you
You
would say.
you'd feel a lot better about that
Yeah,
unit overall. And you're talking
two
about somebody.
Bengals boys coming over here.
Yeah, you're just talking about somebody automatically that would come in and be a difference maker, just in the sense of offenses have to take a consideration of them, which
Yeah.
opens up everything else. What am I most excited about in the offseason? It's probably getting back to, because in years past, I would start doing my film evals on draft prospects in like late December, early January. Whereas I have a very true belief in saying that I'm not going to do any evals until the season's over. I feel like the season deserves it. We only get 17 of them, right? I want to be able to take it in. This year we got even more than that. And I'm not going to complain about it. So I'm getting a little bit late here, but I started looking at safeties. I looked at Cam Ward, who's a very intriguing prospect. I think he reminds me a lot of like a Tyrod Taylor, Deshaun Watson type of quarterback, whereas they're not going to be running a heck of a whole lot. But when they do run, they are a very good athlete, and they do extend things more than you would expect, because you're typically expecting them just to sit in the pocket and dial it up. But when they start moving around a little bit, it can cause some huge issues for a defense. But as a guy that keeps his eyes downfield, a little bit of inaccuracy here and there, especially in medium range. But I think Cam Ward is going to be a very interesting prospect based on
You
where
know
he
what's
goes.
interesting about him too? He didn't start playing football until recently, like over like the last 4 years or something, 4 or 5 years. Like he didn't. That's why he went to such a small school early on.
Was it like
And that
Western Kentucky or something like that?
no, I forget. It's something completely random here. I'll pull it up. But he's interesting, man. He's got a lot of skills.
And
Oops.
I will say the safety class, it's very obvious that Malachi Starks is your overall top prospect there in the safety group. He's going to go in the top 20, but he is exactly what Joe Witt, Dan Quinn, and company would
He,
want out of a
real
safety.
fast. He went to Incarnate Word
Okay.
first from 2020 to 2021. Then he went to Washington State. Then he went to
Washington
Miami.
State, that's what it was.
Yeah.
WSU.
But yeah,
Okay.
he began his collegiate career at Incarnate Word. Hell yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
But he's very made it all the way to Miami, and he did a very good job this year with that offense. They just continued to hum and continue to move. So I'm really excited about being able to watch these prospects. The hard thing for us is going to be who's going to be available at that 29. And obviously, we know kind of what they did last year in the draft, but this year is entirely different just with what draft picks they do have. And we don't know who's going to be brought back in, looked into free agency. Obviously, those holes are going to be filled up as we get closer to the draft, but it's going to be a fun process like it always is. It's its own organism. Now, the next question we have is from Tim Towner Reed. Greatness comes in many forms. However, pancakes are superior to both waffles and French toast. Discuss.
French toast.
Yeah,
Look,
he's so full of it, man.
yeah, I'm not even French. I hate the French, to be honest with you. I think that they're
But they
disgusting
did
people
something
who
right.
smell. They did something right. They made that and that one type of kissing Kyle likes to do. They French toast, dude. I think French toast is elite. French toast is as good as it gets. Honestly, I'd put pancakes third on that list. I'm a big waffles guy as well.
Yeah, you look like it.
Obviously, I like all foods.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, but I'm right there with you. Especially like if you even make French toast at home, it's delicious. You
It's the
get the
best.
taste. You get the taste of the egg with the syrup. I mean, even if you wanted to go down the alley of putting powdered sugar on it as well, if you
Yeah,
just want to
yeah,
add in the sugar in there.
right.
But it's so good, dude. And look,
Yeah,
you got no all respect to you, pancake loving people and everything like that. With French toast, there is no quick way to make French toast, right? In the same
yeah,
sense of like waffles and pancakes. That's why
right.
French toast, above all, is better in my personal opinion. You can add a little cinnamon on there. Oh, dude, just killing it
Yeah,
all day long. I'll go with French toast all day. And I
yeah,
would say that pancakes and waffles are like they're right on the same par with one another.
yeah.
But French toast all day, Tim.
Uh,
You're
yeah,
incredibly
nice
wrong.
homemade pancakes are pretty fucking good. They're not French toast, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, when you get a good French toast, man, you know it.
When you get a good French toast, it changes your life.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Now the next question from Tim. Time for Burgundy Zone does math. I think this past season we had a 63% roster turnover. So if there is a 53-man roster, 10% would be 5 plus players. Then the 63% would have been 30 plus players. Without getting into specific names, what percentage do you expect to see this year?
As soon as you touch on percentages and fractions, I tune out. I can't. I don't do them. I can't do them. I think, that's why I used to get robbed for weed so much. People would say, "Here's an eighth," and I'd say, "What the hell is an eighth?" And I would end up paying like $300. You know?
Yeah, like that random guy who approached me one time randomly and was like, "Can I get 2/8?" It's like, okay, you're not a cop. You're not a
You
cop. I'll say this. I would probably say it's going to be around 30% of turnover rate. And the reason why I say that is, like, obviously Dan Quinn and company, they want to be able to build through the draft. Same with Adam Peters. But you have to go in with the mindset of saying this team did achieve a lot. And how much of a detriment is it going to be by having a massive replacement of like last year of 60%? You could have that drop off happen, whereas you want to keep that nucleus, you want to keep that relationship together, but not so much to the point where it is a detriment. You still want to be able to replenish, right? And so I think 30%, probably 5 plus, around 5 to 7 is where you're going to be expecting that turnover rate. And I'd be comfortable with saying that. I don't think it needs to be as much as 60%. I mean, they made it to the NFC Championship game. And as much as it was a bad game, those players that got them there was something to that. And so you don't want to lose sight of that. You want to continue to build on it, but you don't want to completely just cut the legs out from under it, so to speak.
No.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense.
All right.
You know?
Next question from Tim Tunders about your boy. I hear a lot of chatter about former Dallas players wanting to come and play for DQ. So, quickly, what is your immediate reaction to that?
My immediate reaction is hell yeah, brother. Anything we could do. It's So there's something about getting former Dallas players here in Washington that just it makes them automatically like Stephen Bowen to me could really do no wrong just because he came here and it was like when Cornelius Griffin came from the Giants, I was like sick. Hell yeah, you could do no wrong either. And it's the only people that really pissed me off were Jeremiah Trotter and Jesse Armstead come from the Eagles and the Giants because I was just like, you guys should be so good. What are you doing? Why are you bad? Um, but yeah, it definitely gets you a little bit fired up. So I'm all for it. Apparently, there's that one defensive tackle that's a super freak athlete that Dan Quinn loves, and who loves Dan Quinn. That a lot of people I forget his name, but that a lot of people are
I know you're talking
saying
about.
could definitely come over here for him. And hey, I'm all for more bodies on that D line, especially a big boy. Give me line him up.
Well, my immediate reaction is they better get ready to go do some work, right? They're not going to be paying a heck of a whole lot. So you want to take a pay cut a little bit, come over here and help improve yourself at the Island of Misfit Toys, come right ahead. Same thing with a guy like Jordan Lewis, who is a slot corner for Cowboys, who is possibly going to be available, that David Harrison talked about last week to us. That's somebody else you can obviously key in on and say that's a very good possibility. But honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are from that. You just got to be able to willing to come here and go to work. It's not going to be handed to you just because your relationship with Dan Quinn. But I will say this, Tim, my immediate reaction is I think you're sniffing in the right direction in the sense of the relationships are huge in these sort of scenarios. And if you're going to talk about trust, belief, and if you are going to go down the route of free agency, trading for that relationship, that trust is what's going to be most important in those sort of scenarios. So I think you're in the right sense if you're picking up what I'm putting down. You smelling what I'm smoking. You know what I'm saying, man. Now, the last question that we have. Washington didn't draft a running back last year, Reed. Perhaps none were Commanders. And I am watching Trevor Etienne in the Senior Bowl. But do you think because he transferred from Florida to Georgia, two schools that are major rivals, that he would not be considered as Commander material? He's thinking about Saquon here.
That's a pretty good question. 'Cause that's a pretty good point because they do put a lot into character guys and guys that are all about the team. I don't know. I think with NILs and stuff today in this day and age, it's kind of really can't put it on the players if they go somewhere that maybe wouldn't be. would be frowned upon early on in college because it's like, I mean, dude, he probably got so much money just to go over there.
Back
It's
in
kind
my
of
day,
sick.
college education was an NIL deal.
Yeah, that's also it's also I mean just random branches. That's also where like nowadays like if somebody stays in school for an extra year. It used to be like don't do that. You're gonna get hurt and you're gonna screw yourself and you're gonna miss. Now it's like dude, go make go make your millies. Who cares? You'll be fine. So
Right.
it's like, but I don't know. That's interesting. That would be interesting to see if they started putting a good amount of weight in that like publicly. Like if we found out that that was the reason why they didn't like one of those guys. That would be very interesting. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point because you're right. We're still trying to map out. We're still trying to paint the picture of what is a commander, right, and
Right.
what they're kind of looking for. I'm not sure if changing teams is really something that they're going to be concerned about, especially with this NIL kind of organism that it is, where it's like a lot like free agency for NFL teams. Whereas in years past, 10 years ago, if you transferred, you had to wait a year. And that took a lot of time off of you.
Mm.
And so nowadays you can just do it. And it seems like guys are doing it every year. I know there was
They
one
are, dude.
there was one
Transferred
prospect who had a like a Georgia
7, 8 year
tattoo.
fucking. Oh,
He had a
good.
Georgia tattoo. He had something else. Like his profile picture was at Notre Dame, and then he was it was in a USC uniform or something like that. It's
Ah,
craziness. But it seems
yeah,
like every year somebody's moving. You can't really hold that against somebody, but in the same breath, it is something that you're logging to say, is that somebody that's going to give it all for this team, or they're going to be looking on the way out? I think that's a great way to look at it because you look at a guy like Mikey Samerstill. He stayed at Michigan. Even when he didn't make it as a wide receiver, he transferred to corner, right? And he did that valiantly, and he still got drafted. So I think that there is something to that. I'm just not sure in the whole sphere of this NIL nonsense if that's really going to hold up because it almost seems like everybody is going to be
eh,
doing it at some
yeah.
point soon.
I mean, Jaden transferred, but granted, Jaden didn't go from one rival to another. Like it
Right.
was like Arizona State to LSU, so that's completely different. That is pretty wild, though. You know how much balls you got to have to go from like Florida to Georgia or something and go play an away game at Florida. And after that, the boys take that serious. The South football, no, they'll try to kill you. You know
No,
what
they
I'm
will.
saying?
It's almost like Philly when you go up there and watch a game up there
I will say
almost.
I did like the way that Philly was treating Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
I will say that. I will say like they were cool. They were like, this might be Zach Ertz's last game, man. It's fitting that it's at the link. Like it, I know it's kind of like a backhanded comp, like like it's still like it's probably his last game, honestly, at the link. But they were I did they were like showing respect for him and stuff, saying after giving him a high five. That was cool. That was
Yeah.
cool. I hate Philly. They're disgusting people, but yeah.
And of course, like where I'm up at working, it's very close to Philly. So I work with Philly
I always
fans.
forget. I always forget Delaware's so close to Philly.
Oh, yeah. And obviously,
Dude,
our,
there's because when I would go to the beach, that's like down in Bethany and stuff. It's all Eagles stuff. Everything is every like person that they put on the cover of a magazine where they do it like by like like the Athlon sports stuff. It was always an eagle on it. There's always Eagle Bud Lights.
well,
It's
you have to
always I'm
imagine
like
there
oh
really
man,
is nowhere for those folks to really vacation at
they
because
can't. Yeah,
where
it's
they're
New
from
Jersey
is
or Delaware. Yeah,
such a shithole. And so they got to come
nobody
south to
wants
the
them.
good old place of
Yeah,
Delaware and Maryland to be able to
yeah.
enjoy some
They gotta
vacation
go to
time.
Joe Biden's home state. Come on,
Come on.
come on. What are we doing in the United States of Afghanistan? Come on.
Oh my goodness. But I will say this, like as much as it was backhanded because like I would talk to him about the game this week about look, man, the turnovers destroyed us, to be honest with you. They did.
Yeah.
They broke our back. The big one was the kickoff fumble. That was where it was 20-12. You still had a chance to go down and do something to kind of change momentum there, but that really broke our back. But you're right with the backhanded thing. It's like where they say, "Well, you guys are looking really good for the future," and it's like,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You're
Thank
right,
you. Yeah.
but I don't like getting my ass handed to me.
Yeah. Dude, I got into it. I took it a little too far with a Philly fan on Twitter. He like retweeted. This was just like yesterday or 2 days ago. He retweeted something because I had tweeted like a month ago, like something like that's why Jaden dropped 5 touchdowns on that number one ranked defense. This was like at the end of December. I said that. What I said, factually true. That was true at that second game. And then he posted the thing of like the NFC Championship, and he was like, "What now?" And I was like, "No, you guys dogged us, but what that doesn't make what I said not true. Like that was that's still a fact. Like he did do that." And then he was like, "What did he say?" Oh, yeah, he says, we put belt to ass because they say that. Billy says that. All their fans say that though, belt ass, and I hit him with the only belt in Philadelphia is tied around the arm of some poor lad on Kensington Avenue as he nods out. And he was
Oh my
and
gosh,
he was
dude.
like, dude. And I was like, I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. But another Philly fan was like, yeah, that was actually kind of funny. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah,
At
thank you.
least at least they got good humor. You got to give them that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, everybody.
But
That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you for stopping by, tuning in with us. We're going to be starting some new things because it's the off season. You know, obviously the draft, we have a lot to talk about, free agency, but we're going to talk about current events and just chalk it up, man. Just have fun and just talk about random things that make us laugh or funny things on the internet that's funny.
yeah,
So if you have any
yeah.
ideas on how to make, current events and all that random media stuff that people do, if you have some good ideas for us, shoot them our way. We appreciate it. And if
Shit,
anybody
yeah.
had supplied questions for us, we love you guys. Made it this far.
Send them
You're
our way
freaking
like
champion.
Luka Doncic. That
Like,
was wild. That's a wild thing to do that the Lakers just did. That they pulled off that fucking somehow Mark Cuban, who's reeling so bad from the election, was like, yeah,
my whole thing is you had to know at the end of LeBron's era, you could say where he's top tier. I'm not saying he's done with. He's very obviously he's a specimen. The fact that he's still playing right now, but
dude, it's insane.
you
Yeah,
had to know the NBA was going to freak out from an image standpoint what to do at the end of LeBron's career. Like who is going to take over that, right? And you could
yeah,
kind of see that machine working a little bit to try to make sure that because it's star driven. We all know this.
yeah.
Like
Especially a big market, the big market team,
right.
the Lakers. It's like, yeah,
This is a way to kind of stamp that a little bit because
yeah,
everyone's questioning that trade, and you should. Should
yeah, dude. What the
Luca's
hell?
good.
What was that about? Come on,
Come on, they
what are
drafted
we
Bronny.
doing?
Why do they need Luca?
I know they sent $60 billion over to Ukraine. What are we doing? Come on.
Meanwhile, Zelensky's like, we only received 77 million of the 172 billion, or 77 billion of the 172 billion that was overall sent. He's like, where'd the money
Oh my
go?
God.
Like, your guess is as good as mine, pal.
Dude, this is funny. I don't want to get into politics, but it is funny. Lindsay was going back and looking at all the people that Biden had pardoned, and like there's people that are taken off death row and stuff. And that's not even. But so many of them were for crack related charges, crack and cocaine related charges. It's like, Auntie, my boy. Those are his boys, probably. It's so funny.
You're stupid. All right, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll see you again on Wednesday, possibly, or next Sunday. We'll talk about what we're gonna do. Cause look, like I don't. It's hard on all three of us to make sure this happens. We're all here at the same time. Obviously, Hall with a newborn, his beautiful baby girl, but with Reed, he's got his food stuff that he's got to take care of. So like, we just gotta make it.
I just have to eat every hour. It's hard.
So we just gotta be able to figure out a good time for everybody.
Also,
But
I'm
we'll
transitioning.
come up with something
Yeah.
here. All right, everybody. We appreciate you guys. You're a freaking champion. We love you. I'm Kyle.
I don't know who I am anymore. I don't want to be around here anymore.
All
I
right,
want to
everybody.
die.
Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.